The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies and also by the generous donations of you, the listener. A huge thanks goes to Marcus Wheeler, Tobias Whiting, Alex McIntosh, Peter Millen, David Jakausin, Keith Eriksson and Glenn Oberhauser. Thank you all for your very generous support. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 183. Mythic Battles, Pantheon. With hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Hobbs, Mike Whitaker and Dave Luff, and special guest, the voice of Olympus himself, Mr. Jake Thornton. Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. I'm Neil Shuck, and with me we have the Phantom Cake Snatcher, Mr. Mike Whitaker.
Hello.
And we have the Luffmeister himself. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
How are you both? Are you well?
Yeah. Richer.
I think so.
Oh, make it your minds, guys. Mind you, it is at the end of a long evening.
It is.
Just to explain, we also, for the main part of the show, we also had the Welsh Wizard himself, who has actually just disappeared and gone off to bed because, it's quite late. I foolishly thought that we were having one of our normal recording sessions, okay? With the fact that we were meant to be recording news, what we've been up to, and some bumpers. And I thought, well, considering a couple of us had at this point backed Mythic Battles, wouldn't it be a good idea to get the voice of Olympus, Mr. Jake Thornton, onto the show to have a quick chat about Mythic Battles? With my thought of let's have a quick chat.
Now, at this point, let us go and compile the Meeples top 5 of people you can't have a quick chat with. And after you've added the likes of Rich Clark and a couple of others, the name Jake Thornton does come quite high on this list.
You see the flaw in my plan?
Yeah. So big you could drive a juiced-off truck through it.
Yes, indeed. So, hence why we have this show and indeed we're recording this segment. This is not what we originally intended to do, but we have for you a special show where we talk to Jake Thornton, as it turns out, quite extensively, about Mythic Battles. Which is a Kickstarter that is currently running by is it Mythos Games? Mythos Games, isn't it? And Monolith, who are the guys who have just bought us Conan, or bought several of us Conan, anyway. So, that's what we've got in store for you. And so, a shorter show than normal in the case of, it's only a couple of hours because we only have one thing in it. Basically because we ran out of time to record anything else. But we have coming up for you an interview with the one, the only, Jake Thornton.
The eagles have gone. Britain lies defenseless in a cruel world. Since the birth of our Lord, it has been 456 years. What sins have we committed to bring this punishment to Britain? I speak, of course, of the Saxons. They came as allies, but now they seek conquest. The lands of the Britons lie ravaged before them. Blood runs red in our island. We need a leader to stand against them. We need a man to bring together the Britons in common cause. We seek a Dux Britanniarum.
Right, that's enough of that. Dux Britanniarum from Two Fat Lardies. They really are very good.
Have you ever wondered what's going on in wargaming? We do too. So come with us as we go behind the hobby with the Meeples and Miniatures interview. We're pleased to welcome to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. It's the voice of the gods themselves. It's the Voice of Olympus.
Hello, folks.
Hello, Voice of Olympus.
Hello, Neil. How are you doing?
Oh, well, yeah, it's Jake. It's Jake Thornton. Hello, mate.
Hello. How are you? I haven't spoken to you for ages.
I say, at one point, it seemed that you're on the show all the time, and it's been absolutely ages.
I was. It's been very strange. I've missed you. Are you all right?
Well, thank you. How are you doing?
How's Meeples and Miniatures been going anyway? Has it been going, thriving? Is this the word?
I hope so. It does seem to be doing well. People, seem to be still listening, and in fact, we're actually getting a lot more listeners recently. So I think we must be doing something right.
You must be doing something right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, one would hope, and of course, obviously having you on the show is going to boost things dramatically.
Oh, I'd imagine it would triple the listeners at least.
Great, that means we've got 4 now.
Yeah, because 4 is triple something, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the one and a third before. Listeners are probably wondering right now.
One and a third listener has tripled.
That third listener is the one that listens while they're doing the painting.
Oh, probably, yeah. That makes sense, actually. with just one of their ears.
And it's against the wheel again.
Indeed. By the way, Jake, I'm loving the new Obi-Wan Kenobi look.
Right. Thank you. Which bit's that? I don't know what bit that is.
As in the kind of slightly greying goatee.
Oh, right, that bit. Yes, the slightly greying. The slightly greying bit was kind of not planned. It just sort of happens. But I've been slightly greying for a long time now, so I think I'm just sort of stuck. I'm not going to go grey. I'm just stuck halfway through. But yes, the goatee was an experiment that sort of stuck after a while itself. As I tried various different. I tried to have a really big sort of handlebar moustache, but I couldn't make it work. Mainly because I thought it would be funny to have a handlebar moustache, but I just could not get it to grow properly. Anyway, so yeah. Beard has a mind of its own.
I was going to say, you have to go and see Lord S from Grip and Beast. He'll lend you his wax.
I tried beard wax and moustache wax, and I'll tell you one thing about it. When I was exploring various different gentlemen's facial hair products, I discovered that there's something about that particular trade makes people have great names for their products. They're all called sort of Blackbeard's face jelly or something, mustachio condiments and all sorts of weird things. Great names. No idea why that should be the sort of tiny little niche of the world where the names are so good. Anyway, yeah, sorry. That's kind of not relevant.
Indeed. Right. Okay. Okay.
Sorry,
So
Neil, you should have known I would do this. I was going to do this if you.
So yes, I suppose it's completely my own fault for giving you inappropriate compliments. I do apologise. No, it was just one of these things. When I saw you on the videos for Mythic Battles, it was like
right. That was the one we did. That was the one we did at Trick Track in France.
That was right, yeah.
In Orléans. I mean, talk about facial hair. The French guy who runs that, Monsieur Fall, has the most amazing beard. He's just
that is a good beard. I mean, that's a proper square beard.
Absolutely, he's a lovely guy, and it's amazing look. He's perfected. So he's as a presenter for a sort of TV show, as it were, or videos. He's just splendid. But yes, my little beard was nothing like in the kind of the quality and elegance of his. But yes, that was Trick Track, and it was quite interesting doing the Trick Track videos. We did lots of little ones of individuals talking about bits and bobs, and then we did this demo game, and the demo game took us 2 hours to do because it had the whole kind of explaining the rules and talking about stuff and explaining the intro and the outro and all of this, and it was so hot under those lights that I started sitting up straight like a sort of English sergeant major. And by the end, I was slumped over my desk like I'd had 14 pints. It's like, just because I was melting, because we couldn't have open things of water in the middle of all these cables and stuff. So we didn't have a drink. We had these studio lights. We were just boiling. So I was sort of as the Wicked Witch says, I'm melting. It was very entertaining. Actually, it was really good fun. It's a really good video. That I do like that, but because we get partway through explaining it, and then there starts being these little pauses when everybody's just looking at the game because they're into the game, and this Monsieur Fall says, "We're not explaining anymore, are we?" We're playing.
Yeah, I'm gonna say sorry, we're concentrating. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, shush. We're busy. Anyway, yes. So that was from the Obi-Wan Kenobi look. There's more of that. Yes, there's lots of me doing that.
As I say, it's been probably 18 months since we last caught up. I think it was. It was UK Games Expo. Not this year, but previous year. I think it was the last time we actually talked to you on the show.
Yeah, when it was still all at the hotel.
When it was still all at the hotel before it kind of went mad last year.
Yeah, before it got big. But then I was at Essen, so compared to Essen, it's tiddly.
I was going to say it is a little bit of a quantum leap. Even mind you, I think Essen's a quantum leap from anything else.
It's certainly big. Yes, it's around here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how. It's something like several 100,000 turned up. I can't remember which. Somewhere between 200,000 and 400,000 people, I think. I can't remember which year I was looking at Essen, which is just insane. But then the whole place it's like an egg. We've all been to these big shows, and it's like a Salute or something. It's a huge aircraft hangar of a place, or been the NIA or the NEC. It's really, really big, and I think there was something like 7 or 8 of those stuck together at Essen. It's just ridiculously big. Unlike most shows, which have half a day or maybe a day at the extreme to go in and set up in advance, that has, I think, 3 days in advance. Partly because one of them is like a trade day where all the traders talk to each other, but the other 2 are basically for the big companies to build houses. Pretty much, they sort of build these enormous constructions with several rooms, kind of with a way in and rooms inside for meeting rooms and storage and all sorts of stuff. They build these incredible sorts of, they're like houses. Yeah, so it takes them a little while to do that. So I think there was 2 days worth of setup at the beginning of this incredibly big show. Yeah, I've not been there before. It was just quite impressive. I didn't even see most of it because I was working on the stand. So the little bit, I could only foray so far in my breaks.
Oh, right, so Essen this year was the first time you've been?
Yes, this year was the first time I'd been to Essen. I went with the Mythic Battles crew, and it was enormous. But it was interesting because it's not as much bigger as it looks, because in a lot of cases it's just the stands are much bigger. I mean, some of the stands are enormous. One of the guys I was talking to said his stand had 40 gaming tables, 40 gaming tables, which were running demos. He's one of the ones who had basically a house in the middle of his area. 40
That's
gaming
not a
tables.
house, that's a blooming church hall.
Yeah. 40 gaming tables plus the huge building in the middle, which had all the storerooms and demos and meeting rooms and stuff. And he was busy all the time, and he wasn't the biggest one, or even in the set of them that were the biggest sort of size up. He was maybe a sort of tier 2 size thing. And you just couldn't fit that many of that sort of thing in somewhere like Salute. It just shows you how big it is. And there were, a couple of dozen things that size or bigger. So despite the fact there's that many halls, it's not necessarily that many more traders.
There's just a lot more of it.
There's a lot more of it, yes. Mind you, I have no idea what was in some of the halls because I never went in some of the halls. It was just, I couldn't find any Sherpas who knew the way to Hall 6. We only had 2 months' supplies, so we never got to Hall 4.
So you mentioned Mythic Battles a few times.
I did, yes.
Which is a nice sort of segue in. What's it all about then, Jake? And how come you're the voice of Olympus?
How am I the voice of Olympus? Well, the Mythic Battles. I mean, normally my day job is, as it were, is normally as a game designer, and so I was talking to Leo, who's the editor of Ravage, among other things, and I know him from various bits and bobs, and he's a friend of mine. So we were talking about different options, and he said that he'd got together with this chap called Benoit, and they were setting up a company to do this game that Benoit had done called Mythic Battles. So I said, it's an interesting idea, or, a new game company, always interested in that. And I was visiting him in Paris, and we sort of had a play of the game, and it was quite fun. I said, they were saying, we're going to go on Kickstarter. And I've been involved in quite a few Kickstarters in one way or another. And I said, I think, I've had a thought about how people should do them and this and that. And I was saying, I think you should do this. And I think this would help. And this would be a more interesting thing for people to be involved in. And I gave them this sort of spiel of this idea that I'd had. And they went, that's really, really good. And I said, well, you should get your guy to do this. And you should get your guy to do that. And this was, maybe you want to think about trying this and that. Because I'm good at ideas. It's easy, I could watch work for hours, as long as someone else is doing it. But... And they went at the end of this. They went, "That's a brilliant idea. We love that. It's absolutely brilliant. Who are we going to get to do this?" I don't know. It's, I just come up with ideas. That's my job. And they went, "Why don't you do it?" Okay. I might have just talked myself into a corner here.
Yeah.
Because if you turn around and went, no, okay, what's wrong with it?
Yeah, that's right. So they said, why don't you do this? Why don't you do it? Why don't you, you know what you're doing, you know what you want to do. Why don't you do it? That would be, and they went, that'd be brilliant. And they just, that sort of happened like that. So that's how I became the voice of Olympus. Well, the voice of Olympus was basically me saying what I wanted to do wasn't exactly the same as community manager, which is kind of the sort of thing I'm doing. It's the easy way to explain to people because people know what community managers are. But I wanted to do something slightly different from what people have been doing before. So I wanted to call it something different because a community manager is an incredibly boring name. Sounds like you work in the most tedious of grey banks and do nothing of interest. So I thought, I don't want to be doing that because that sounds really boring. So I thought also the other thing was I wanted to separate it, like I said. So I came up with Voice of Olympus because the theme of Mythic Battles is the Greek myth. So it's Zeus and Poseidon and Achilles and Heracles and all the rest of it. So I thought the Voice of Olympus sounds much more cool than community manager, and it also fits the theme. So we're not doing a game about shuffling papers in a bank, so community managers doesn't fit the theme. So Voice of Olympus does. So Mythic Battles, to segue into that, is a game set in the aftermath of a great cataclysm. If you imagine, you have the Greek myths as you know them, as you learned them at school, as you read them in your books. It's the gods in Olympus, the Hades in the underworld, man in the middle worshipping the gods. The Titans were long ago banished to Tartarus, which is one of the areas of the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of all settled, and there's heroes turn up and monsters turn up and heroes fight monsters, and then one of them kills each other, and so it goes. All of the stories you've heard, the labors of Heracles, the fight, the war in Troy, Jason and the Argonauts, all of this happened exactly as it's told in the stories.
Basically, if Roger Lancelin Green mentioned it, it's in there.
It's absolutely, it's all of these stories are as they were. And then we have the sort of the story of Mythic Battles starts. Zeus is not known for his fidelity, shall we say.
What's the phrase? Understatement of the year.
So Hera gets a little peeved at this from time to time. And at some point, Zeus is busy at it again, and Hera basically loses the plot with this. And the Fates, who are the only thing that can influence the gods, decide that they're going to start sticking their oar in and nudging her and saying, well, you can't let this carry on. You should get your own back. You should do something about this. You can't let him do this. You can't let him carry on like that. You look terrible. He's just embarrassing you. And so in return, as a way of getting back at Zeus, Hera decides to unlock the gates of Tartarus. Now, this might be considered excessive.
Yes.
Because it releases the Titans. And that's not good.
Hell hath no fury and all that.
Hell hath no fury indeed. And when you're a god, hell hath no fury on another scale. So Hera releases the Titans, and this causes a new war, a new Titanomachy, which is the name of the original war between the gods and the Titans. And the fallout of this enormous war is what sets the scene for the game itself. What happens in the war is the gods win in the end, but in the fight for Olympus, Olympus is destroyed. And there's basically kind of a Michael Bay size explosion. Destroys Olympus.
I must admit, the video was like, Olympus has fallen. Yeah.
Olympus has fallen, yes, absolutely.
From a great height having been blasted up there, by the sound of it.
Yes. But yes, and that's quite a good film too, but that's not quite the same setting. The Olympus is destroyed. Many of the Titans have been killed. Some of the gods have been killed as well, and the gods that survive have been so weakened that they are no longer immortal. They are powerful. They are hugely powerful compared to mortals, but they are no longer. They're pale shadows of what they were. And many of the gods that have been killed, their power, their essence, their divine energy has been scattered across the ruins of Greece. It was incidental to these gods having a fight. They've killed 90% of the mortals and trashed the whole country. And these bits of godly power called omphalos are scattered, or sort of coalesce into these little gems that are found all over the place. And so as a result of this massive explosion, the gods are basically knocked out, and they lie in a coma for a while. And when they start to come round, they are in the ruins of their world, and they are no longer immortal, and they are struggling to find their place in the new world. And basically, they need to go around, find the omphalos, and absorb it. And by absorbing enough omphalos, they will become immortal and gain sufficient power to become immortal. And obviously, the first one to become immortal is going to be able to set themselves up as king or queen of the gods. So that's the backstory.
It sounds, in a very good way, and I'm not meaning this to criticise, a bit like there's the whole about season and a half of Xena, where there's a mad dash for a chunk of ambrosia for exactly that reason.
Right. I've never, ever watched or seen it.
All right, okay. Fundamentally, Ambrosia does exactly what Omphalos does, and needless to say, there are an awful lot of people who'd like to get their hands on the one bit that's being played Piggy in the middle with.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. And so that's kind of the basic driver of the struggle in the game, but I'll put the game to one side for a moment. I'll tell you about that in a minute. There's one more very, very important bit of background.
Mm.
When the war broke out again between the gods and the Titans, Hades had to leave the underworld to fight with the gods against the Titans, because the only way the gods were going to win was if they all fought together, which is difficult for the Greek gods because they're not very good at being united. But that was the only thing.
Why do I have a bad feeling about this?
And because the gates of Tartarus had been opened and Hades was not looking, things started to come out of the underworld. All of the things started to come out of the underworld.
Okay.
That's the Hydra that Heracles had slain, the Minotaur, the Medusa, you name it.
World of Oops.
Yeah. Hera's reaction seems to be just a trifle more than was necessary. But anyway, the good point about this, because it isn't all bad, all of the monsters that had been slain over the years, all of these creatures came back. So they're now wandering around these ruins of Greece. But so did the heroes. So all of the lost heroes, all of these former great heroes that we tell stories of all the time, they've all come back. So Jason is back. So Heracles is back. So Achilles is no longer dead. Odysseus is no longer dead. All of these heroes are back so again, you can fight against the monsters, but everything's all jumbled up because these people have been brought back from the dead all at the same time when they didn't exist at the same time before. So the setting now is among the ruins of Greece. You have these gods and these monsters and these heroes wandering around with the gods sort of leading war bands, little armies, to fight each other, to collect the Omphalos and to beat each other up so that they can gain their dominance. And that's basically what the game's about. The game's about taking you take a god, and then you recruit a little army from the heroes and from the monsters and the various little groups of mortals who are still around, and you fight against another group with another god. And that's what we do. That's the idea of the game.
So it's basically a skirmish war game masquerading as a board game. Then
you could say that. Yes, it is. Yes, I mean it's a skirmish game that has got lots of board game elements in it because it's not just. It looks, when you look at it, it's got miniatures on both sides, and you're rolling dice and fighting, playing cards, rolling dice, the usual kind of stuff. So you think, okay, it looks very like a skirmish game. Is it like a skirmish game? Well, yes, it is like a skirmish game in some ways, because you look at the board and you have a sort of 2-foot square board with areas on it, and you have miniatures on it, and you roll dice and you play cards and you sort of move around and fight and things get killed and so on. So in that sense, it's a skirmish game. Mm. There is another mode of playing it where you're playing scenarios and campaigns, and they're all set up very differently from each other, because when we got the guys to write the campaigns, basically they were given a free hand to do what they wanted, and said there's no one campaign system. Each campaign has its own system, because each campaign is a different story, and what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another. So it's not a one-size-fits-all generic campaign system. The campaigns are all tied intimately in with the way the whole story works for that campaign. But so there's that way of playing as well. So there's the story-driven stuff. But the easiest way to explain it is to explain it as a skirmish game, as a sort of two-sided, or you can play it 3 or 4 side as well, and 2 versus 2 is quite fun. But the easiest way to explain it is a 2-player game, where I take my god and my warband, or my army, and you take your god and your army, and we have a fight. And in that simple format, there's 2 ways of winning. You either collect more than half of the Omphalos on the table, or you kill the other god. Very simple.
Right.
So, but when I say it's actually more of a, that makes it sound very like a skirmish game, and actually it's so like a board game with nice pieces in other ways. So I'll tell you why. There's also a lot of card game elements. So you start off, you've got in order to play, if we're playing a 2-player game, we look at the box and we go, right, there's 4 gods in the core box, and I mean on the Kickstarter at the moment I think there's 7 available now, 2 of which are just free extras, and anyway, so there's plenty more. So you pick one of the gods that you have available, and then you put the other ones to one side because there's only 1 god each in this, and then you draft. You put all the other all the other units you've got out, and you take turns picking from that until you've picked up to 12 points. So every unit has a value, 1, 2, 3, or 4 points, and you've got up to 12. So if I take the first choice of the god, you'll get the first choice of the unit. So
right.
let's say I pick Zeus and you pick Athena. That means you get the first pick of whatever's there. And we've laid out all the things we've got. And each unit is unique. So there's no sort of generic, everyone can have 5 hoplite units. Every unit is unique, which means the draft phase is really interesting. Obviously, there's lots of synergies between different units. So rather than me getting an army and you working out an army and you working out an army, we come together and maybe they have an interesting dynamic and maybe they don't. I'm sitting here with we pick our god and then you take the Hydra, and I think, oh, okay, he's taken the Hydra. Athena's got the Hydra, so I don't want him to have hurt Cerberus as well, so maybe I should take Cerberus. Or actually, I really want to take Leonidas, or I really want to take Odysseus because Odysseus works really well with Athena, and I don't want that combination to be on the other side of the table.
Or I assume you take Hercules because he beat the Hydra.
That's right. Or I could take Hercules because he's really tough, or I could take Achilles because he's really tough in a different way, or and you have this really interesting kind of dynamic, which is a little sort of 3-minute game in its own right at the beginning, where you're trying to set up what you're doing, but because it's all in one go, it's all sort of live in reactive, and you can see exactly what's going on. You tend to get more balanced games. You don't get this thing where I've turned up with an army that you can't beat because you didn't take any anti-tank guns or whatever, and I've got loads of tanks. You just can't, everything you've got bounces off my armor because I happen to have picked that, and you didn't have any idea what I was bringing till I turned up. With this, you know what the other person's got, so you can be taking stuff particularly good against that, or trying to stop them doing their combos, or any kind of mixed, or just taking them because they're pretty, which I tend to do, or taking Leonidas. So Leonidas, who's the guy who's, Leo's real name is Leonidas. So every now and again, I take Leonidas just so he can't have him. Or if somebody takes, if you take Leonidas, I always feel if I've got Leonidas, it was rude not to take the Spartans. And they do work well together. But so it's one of those things where you there's lots of reasons, depending how childish you're feeling, as to what you might do, in which order you might take things. But it's very simple. You've got these units, they're worth 1, 2, 3, or 4 points. You put them in front of you and you just take turns picking them. It's that simple. But the dynamic within that simplicity is lots to think about. And I think that's what I like about the game. And this is the reason I'm involved is because I like it so much. So I mean, I'm sure I'm part of this team. So you're bound to think that in a way that I'm just pimping it out because I'm part of the team. But actually, it kind of went the other way. I'm part of the team because I like it, and I think it's a very clever piece of design. One of the things I think is particularly clever about it is that, whereas with almost every other game you play, there's certain parts of it where you're just along for the ride and fate takes its toll, and you do what you take your lumps. That's it. There's not much choice. With Mythic Battles, almost every step of the way you can mess with it, fate, and I really like that. it allows you to sort of finesse and to think through any kind of thing, and you're always balancing risk and reward, and you're always balancing, if I do this now, I won't have this later. All of this kind of decision, but that's with everything from picking an army to using your cards to playing on the table with the miniatures to even throwing the dice, which I'll come to in a bit. You don't just throw the dice and that's it, you're stuck with whatever you've got. You can mess with it. So all the way through, you just are able to use your brain to tinker and finesse and use your skill to make it work your way. You can speak up if you like. I don't have to ramble on indefinitely, but
No, we're just listening in rapt adoration.
So,
Sure.
so can I ask a question of the team? How many of us have backed this so far?
How
How
many
many
people
do
have
you
this so far?
No, from the team.
How many? Sorry,
I'm guessing the answer is 2 because I'm betting Neil has, I'm betting Hobbs has, and I'm betting Luffy's borrowing Neil's copy.
Well,
Am I right?
Yes.
possibly.
Oh god, I better make it 3 then, haven't I?
Neil got in first, didn't he? Again.
No, I did.
No. Hobbsy got in first on this one. I was still busy. I was still busy getting distracted because my Conan Kickstarter just turned up.
Neil tells me about these things after he's already invested in them,
I was
Great
waiting for it to
way
start.
of saving money, isn't it, Luffy?
and then goes, "Oh, there's no point in getting it now."
I have to say, having grown up as I mentioned in passing comment earlier with Roger Lensling Green and Lazina and Greek myth generally, I think I may just have to succumb.
Well, it's
I think you should. What you should do is you should go and look at the artwork and go and look at the pictures of the miniatures.
I already did.
And then watch one or other or both of the gameplay videos, because we spent a lot of time trying to explain the rules on video because it's an easy way to do so, and it's entertaining to watch people play at the same time. But the rules, one of the things about it is the rules are so simple that there's very little that isn't in those videos other than the special powers of individual units. It's the way in which it all interlocks that's where the clever bit is, the way the thinking comes. But yes, I think it's one of those things where I just think the game kind of sells itself. It's very, very pretty.
it's a collaboration between Mythic and Monolith. Well,
Yes, that's right. Between Mythic Games and Monolith.
Well,
Yeah.
there's certainly some very Conan-looking logo and iconography on some of the cards.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the thing is that the guys at Monolith and the guys at Mythic Games are all a bunch of French gamers who've known each other for years. So they're all sort of used to helping each other out anyway. And Monolith have all the painful experience gained from Conan, and all the things that went right and all the things that went wrong, and basically all the lessons they've learned from that. And it's really, really useful to be able to talk to and work with people who've just had this experience themselves, and then they can sort of lead you to the contacts that worked and tell you to avoid the bear traps that they fell in. And this is the other thing is that because this is being run on Kickstarter as a Monolith project, because we have to pick one person, so it seemed easier to use theirs already. But what's interesting is when you're dealing with the second project from the same kind of workflow process, the same pipeline as they'd say in video gaming, you know the people, you know the factory, you know the shippers, you know the people who you're dealing with, and you know how long they take. When they say 3 weeks, do they mean 3 weeks or do they mean 6 weeks? Well, you know now, but the first time you don't. First time you just got to assume that they're telling the truth, or assume that they're lying, or assume something because you haven't got a clue. But now because they've done Conan and learnt all those lessons, there's far fewer bear traps to fall in, because we're working with a factory that we know. We're working with every step in the line. You've got people who are familiar faces, who are used to you and you're used to them. So it makes it so much easier to do.
I was just going to say, I mean, the thing I like about this, and I think why it'll go well, is there is just one pledge level. So there's no messing around with multiple different pledges. You got all the add-ons.
But yeah, I mean, we may come back at the end and do a kind of all-in, because people keep asking us to do an all-in. I keep saying, well, we don't know what all is. And we've got 3 weeks left to serve this. When we're recording this, we've got 22 days left, I think. So when people say, can we have an all in? We go, well, what's all mean in 21 days? I don't know. So we might do a second pledge level that at the end, just for convenience, to stop people having to click on 6 things. But yes, the other thing that was why I think this is going to go much more smoothly than Conan did, is because one of the other lessons we learned from the Monolith guys is about being prepared. When you want to do something with this scale of production and this number of miniatures and this size of miniatures, because some of them are absolutely huge.
Yeah, for goodness sake, a pledge includes Atlas, which I mean that is what 90 mil, 100 mil tall,
something like that. Well, put it this way: in Mythic Battles, a normal human is 32 mil to the eye, which is kind of industry standard normal human these days. I remember the days when 25 mil meant actually 25 mil to the top of his head. But anyway, that's because I'm ancient greybeard, as we mentioned earlier. So a normal human is 32 mil. A kind of human-shaped Zeus, for example, a human-shaped god, is 65 mil, which is one of the things, incidentally, I really like the idea that you get this classical, the gods are big because they're powerful. Okay, that makes sense. The Egyptians do this particularly famously, but it does turn up in other cultures as well, where people draw powerful kings and they draw gods bigger because they're more powerful. So having the models represent this, I just think is great. It sort of really tickles my sort of ancient history sort of geek there. Anyway, so the humans are 32, gods are twice that size, and if you look at the photographs of how big the Titans are, the Titans make the gods look like the gods make the mortals look, if you see what I mean. So, and Atlas is the only Titan you've seen a picture of, and he's not standing up straight. He's hunched forward. So he makes Zeus look quite small. So he must be getting on for sort of 11 centimeters or something tall. He's a very big boy. And of course that's, double the height times double the depth times double the width. He's massively chunky model. And he's quite big and muscly because he did hold up the sky.
Yes.
So, you wouldn't pick a weedy guy to do that job.
Should we do the hard sell bit?
You can if you want.
Yeah.
I've already sold.
What is the hard sell bit?
So, the pledge, $99.
$99.
Which at the moment is looking quite good because the dollars.
At the moment, 99. Well, it depends on how bad Trump messes the economy up. But $99 at the moment gets you, as I speak, I think gets you 90 models.
Yeah.
But that's 90 models, including a Titan and 6 gods, I think.
That's correct.
Mm. And as well as I mentioned that the humans are about 32 mil, gods are 65, Titans are, 11 or 12 centimeters, something like that. Atlas is anyway enormous. There's also monsters like the Hydra. The Hydra's not small, and Cerberus isn't small. So yeah, there's quite a lot of stuff. And 90 miniatures. It's funny because I was looking at another Kickstarter, and there's 2 things that are interesting about it. One of them is that they seem to be just we've got lots of miniatures in our pledge, and you go, yeah, but they're all human size, and they're nearly there's hardly any different ones. There's lots and lots of the same thing. One of the things what we've got is most of the models there's only one of, because every unit's unique, and if it's a god or a hero or a monster, then there's only one model anyway. Mm. So, there's only one Minotaur, there's only one Achilles, there's only one Zeus. We have units of troops, which are small mortal things usually. And they range from 2 to, I think the biggest one was 7, because we did Spartoid, we did the dragon's teeth.
Yes.
And because we all grew up watching Harryhausen, we had to do 7, and they had to be skellies. So we have
absolutely.
Yeah, the Dragon of Thebes, who is this big, because dragon in Greek means snake, so it's a huge, like twice the height of a man, fat snake, And when you kill the Dragon of Thebes, these Spartoi spring up from its teeth, and they're seven skeletons. Which was, I mean, in the myth, if you read the myth, one of the Spartoi is described as later getting married and having children. So probably not skellies in the myth originally. But we just couldn't resist. It was just one of those things. We all immediately kind of go, skellies. And we go, yeah, of course. Obviously.
Yeah. Now, the reason I jumped onto this, and I jumped on very early, in actually about a minute.
Did you get an early bird?
I did, yeah.
He got an early bird. Curse him.
Yeah. Hello. I have to say, I got on and there was five pledges, and I clicked on a pledge, and I worked out I clicked on the $99 pledge. Worked out I missed the early bird, and by the time I clicked on the early bird, it was like 250 odd had gone. And in the space of seconds. So
yeah, I think the early birds lasted less than 3 minutes.
Yeah. So
it was a bit mental.
It was, yes.
There's lots of people. Yeah, there's lots of people said, I clicked in and it said 25, and then when I got my confirmation, I was 468 or 600 and something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit crazy.
Yeah. The thing that attracted me to it was the battlefields. Because the battlefields look very similar to ones, or very similar in style, shall we say, not in picture, to ones that we had in Conan. And there is
it's the same artist.
Yes,
it's the same artist,
and they're officially compatible, aren't they?
They are officially compatible. Yes, they're compatible one way because the Mythic Battles battlefields, the Mythic Battles maps, have a central symbol that tells you what kind of terrain it is, and a number in the middle to tell you how many units you can put in that area, which the Conan ones don't. So you can use it. You can't use Conan ones for Mythic Battles because it doesn't have that information, unless you've got a biro. But you can use Mythic Battle ones for Conan because you don't need that information, so you can ignore it.
Yeah, you just need the little dots for line of sight.
But the central things work for line of sight anyway. That's what one of the reasons they're there.
Yeah.
So it's everything you need to play Conan is on the Mythic Battles maps. It's just not true the other way around.
Yeah, and I've heard rumours that there's going to be a little crossover campaign where
it's going to be a crossover, and people keep saying little, but there's going to be a crossover box set, something, whatever you call it, expansion. But there's going to be a Conan crossover. I was talking to Benoit about that this afternoon because there's been a bit of confusion about what was going to be in that, and I was told.
I mean, to be fair, there's been some people that have kind of not been 100% happy about that, have they?
There's people, basically, we've got something like 5,000 and something people. So pretty much whatever we do, there's some people that aren't happy.
Yeah, true.
We there have been several instances where we've given something away, and then people go, "I don't like that," and you go, "Well, it's free," and they go, "I don't like it."
Well, we could discuss Kickstarters.
Just throw it in the bin then if you don't like it. No, but especially, I mean, absolutely guaranteed. You were just before I was talking to Benoit about Conan crossover, and I said on comments, because I'm managing the comment section, and I was keeping up. Absolutely, I didn't have more than 5 comments that I hadn't read and responded to, and I went away and I said I'm going away to talk to Benoit about this, and I came back and there was 100 and something comments when I came back. And in the meantime, from me going away, they'd put up Artemis as a stretch goal. And Paolo Parente did the art, and I can't remember the name of the chap. French guy did the his name I can't pronounce even if I can remember. And I think anyway, French guy did the sculpt, and if you look at it, she's showing a lot of cleavage.
Indeed.
So I wrote this post before I actually refreshed my screen. I wrote this post because one of the ways of keeping track of which ones I've read and haven't read, it's to do with when I refresh the screen. Anyway, but so I didn't read what everybody had said. I just wrote this post said, I realized I can see that Artemis has been released since I looked at this lot. I'm betting that 50% of you love it and 50% of you hate it. And lo and behold, when I went back and read these 120 comments, It's exactly that. It's it's either it's a great model, love it, or it's oh my god, she's got boobs, that's outrageous. Ancient Greek woman with boobs on show. Well, there you go. Well, it's just cleavage. It's like I go. We do not live in the same world as the ancient Greeks, and whilst Paolo has something of a reputation for this sort of thing, it's I don't know. It's one of those things where you can't please all the people, all the time anyway. But as soon as you do a female model, it just becomes extreme. The best one was today. Was it today? Was it yesterday? I can't remember. Someone found a picture of a harpy. Now we haven't officially.
Oh yes.
We haven't officially released the harpies yet. This is something that someone's found that was on show at some demo or event or something ages ago. Anyway, so harpies, and the harpy design is basically they're kind of malevolent, half people, half birds. So the guys who drew this, you basically gone for a kind of vulture-y sort of feel to the bird, and it's got this long bald neck and a head on the neck, and it looks I really like it. It looks spooky and weird and not right, which I think is perfect for harpies. Anyway, hasn't got big pair of boobs sticking on the front of this bird. So people started going, female harpy's supposed to be female. They haven't got any boobs. Like, this is not a female. I go, have you seen a female vulture? Really? Have you seen what female vultures look like? Right. Anyway, so I wrote down human female plus boobs equals wrong.
Oh, I remember that comment. Yeah.
Female bird plus boobs, without minus boobs equals wrong. Basically, we can't be right. It's like if you do the anatomically correct thing of having the human females have breasts, I'm afraid it's true. That's wrong. Pretty much whatever you do. It's very, very difficult to be right.
I mean, it is interesting because that kind of aesthetics has been coming out in the thought. I don't know how much you're aware of some of the other stuff going on. I mean, I'm backing another Kickstarter called Deep Madness. From Dimension Games, and they run into trouble. I mean, it's a Lovecraftian themed horror board game. So, and to be fair, some of the models, tentacles and all sorts of some of them are pretty twisted. And then as soon as they did one model that showed a naked female and boobs, massive amount of complaints. Absolutely.
What I don't get is we're doing a game based on ancient Greece, and if anyone's actually seen any ancient Greek wall paintings and sculptures, they will know that not wearing an awful lot in Greece in the summer is kind of normal. And they didn't have the same view of nudity as we do. Same view of sexuality in general was very different in ancient Greece.
I was going to say, I think it's a case of thank you, lucky stars that anybody's wearing clothes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the Spartans, the Spartan. If you look at early Spartan, in fact, early Greek warriors, they fight with a helmet and a shield and a spear, and that's it.
And a smile.
That's certainly how they're portrayed in the artwork. Anyway, but what I was going to say was, one of the things that people keep saying is, are you worried about kingdom death? And I think, right, so people are complaining about us for having a bit of cleavage on Artemis the Huntress. And then they're going to go and buy Kingdom, spend hundreds of dollars on
I pledged the original Kickstarter, and that entire, pretty much the entire model output from that Kickstarter is cheesecake.
It's baby booby hand monster.
Intentionally so.
Oh yes, absolutely. But I don't have a problem with that. It's not really my thing, but I think they make some beautiful models. They make some absolutely gorgeous models. They make a whole bunch of models I think, just don't understand what the point of that one is. But it's a kind of horror-y sort of, so that's fine. But my point is, if what we're doing, making an ancient Greek female god have cleavage, is outrageous, then they should be burning down the internet as soon as Kingdom Death goes online. because the level of outrage just should be just off the scale, but it isn't. So it seems to me that we're sort of getting a slightly
double standard,
a slight inequality in this. Yeah, a double standard, a slight inequality in the sort of the measuring sticks we're being held up to here.
I think we're all forgetting the scourge maybe of our modern times, where people have the right to be offended and want to voice it as well.
Well, that is the internet. I mean, the internet is where you go to be offended.
Yeah.
And I mean, I look at the models,
and also where you go to complain about being offended.
Oh, absolutely, yes, absolutely. But the thing is that I look at the models in any game you look at the models of, and I think pretty much every game is the same. You look at the models and you think, well, that one's nice, but I wouldn't have done the other one like that. How many ranges can you say you've seen of anything in the way of miniatures where you like all of them? It's pretty rare. And pretty much every range has got something in where you go, oh, that one's amazing. And then the other one, the other end of the scale is, that really doesn't quite work. And it could be the detail, the pose, the way the body's held, anything. And it's also personal, because it's a matter of taste. And some people, as you can see if you read the comments, some people are going, that's incredible, that's knocked it out of the park there. And the next guy goes, I'm going to cancel my pledge, this is just awful. And you go, right. And so we can't just change stuff because some people don't like it, because other people love it. So whatever we do, we're wrong, because if we don't change it, some people don't like it. If we do change it, other people will hate it. So it's this kind of impossibility of pleasing everyone all the time that is just what happens when you do with that many people.
Yeah, you just have to go with your designs and your good feeling of what you think is going to make a good game and what's going to make a good model, and people will either back you or they won't.
And
absolutely.
We can rant and we can moan about Kickstarters and people with entitlement issues forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would happen. Yeah.
Wait till you start shipping. Oh.
Well, this is one of the things. I mean, we've got because everyone's expecting us to fail. I mean, people keep saying this is going to be 6 months late. You go, well, why is it? Do you have can you tell me the lottery numbers for next month as well? If you've got a crystal ball that's that good, brilliant. Actually, we've planned it not to do that. We've planned it to ship when we say we're going to ship it.
Well, as you say, this is one of those things, because obviously the issues that Monolith have had with Conan.
Yeah, sure.
And then obviously, of course, this week we've had the mild rumpus that's gone on with Dark Souls.
Yes.
And what's happened there, and again, part of that issue is shipping. So people are then automatically assuming that you're going to have the same issue simply because you're a similar sort of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's entirely understandable in that people have been bitten once and not willing to stick their hand in again. I understand why people get this expectation. I'm slightly different because I've got so many games that I just kind of I've kickstarted something like 35 different projects. And a bunch of them haven't turned up yet, but I'm not really very bothered because they'll turn up at some point. And I'm in no shortage of things to play in the meantime. So I'm not sitting there, twiddling my thumbs with my mates around the table going, oh, well, that didn't turn up. We're stuck now, aren't we? Let's just stare at a blank table for an hour.
What's the phrase? He's one of us, guys.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. There's more stuff to get on the table than's ever going to get on the table anyway. So the fact that I kickstarted something a year ago that looked really cool at the time and they have now half forgotten about and hasn't turned up yet, that's not really an issue for me. But I understand for some people it is. That's fine. But as I said, it's one of the big things was we knew all the way through. So I've been talking to Leo about this for something like 18 months now. Even when I haven't been working with him, I've been talking to him about it because I know him anyway. And it's been from all of that time. It's been we've got to get so much, as much as possible done in advance of the Kickstarter, so that when we do the Kickstarter, we don't have the problem of delivering it when we say we do. And the biggest thing, I mean, of course, and then this creates problems because the biggest lead time is the art and the sculpts. You get the sculpts because you have to get the art done to get the sculpts done to match the art. So you've got the whole process of getting the art done. And then you've got the whole process of briefing a sculptor, getting the sculpt done, approving it or not approving it, sending it back and forwards, getting that done. And when you've done that process to get to a finished master in your hand, then you've got to go and send it off to the factory, which has got to get processed and mastered, and then they got it molds, and you got to test the molds and all of this. It's a very long process, especially as you have to be doing things like sending something to China in the middle of it, and then back again, because you've got to physically check physical objects like masters and test runs. They have to physically send you the results of the test run for you to look at in your hand. Otherwise, you can't. There's no point in them sending a photograph of something they've made and hoping you can tell whether it's all right or not, because that's not going to work. And so this whole process is very, very long-winded and full of points at which things can go wrong and suddenly become a lot slower. And that's where most people fall over, because most companies aren't doing the mastering and the sculpting and the tooling in advance of the Kickstarter. It's because it's expensive. That's why you don't do it in advance.
Yeah, quite,
till people pay you money. Now, Mythic has risked an awful lot by doing all of this stuff up front, but it means because they've got all of the, not only have they got loads and loads of things drawn and then loads and loads of things, they've got over 100 pieces of art, they've got loads and loads of things sculpted, they've got, I think, all of the expansions are sculpted, all of the core boxes sculpted, but not only that, the core box is actually tooled in terms of the miniatures. Now, the day before or 2 days before we got to Essen, we got the first 5 sets of the core box miniatures off the first production run.
Cool.
What Parente called the T1 test. The first test run, and it's got a couple of little errors in it because it's the first one, and the whole point of sending it to us is for us to check and then say this bit's wrong, fix this bit. So there's a couple of tiny little bits wrong with it, but basically this is the finished product, and we had that before we did the Kickstarter of the first test runs. Obviously we can't afford to pay for thousands and thousands and thousands of these and all the rest of it. But we got that bit done so that we could say when we went to the Kickstarter, this is a finished thing. We're not saying we're going to do it. We're not saying this is a concept of what we're going to do. We're not going to say here's a render of what we're going to do. We're not going to say here's a 3D print of what we're going to do. We're saying this is a production miniature from the molds that will make your miniatures. The only difference between the one I'm showing you here and the one you will get is that we've got 6 months to make it better. So that's why we're saying we can ship on time, because we have spent this effort and money and time and resource getting as much as possible done in advance. And it also means hopefully people can believe us when we say this is a quality product. Look at Athena, look at Zeus, look at Ares. Aren't they great? Look at the detail. Look at the crispness of the detail. Look at the sculpting in general is just brilliant. I mean, a lot of the sculptors we've got are ex-Rackham hands who've been doing this for years at this sort of ridiculously high quality, high detail level, and they're expensive. Absolutely, they're very expensive people to get to do your sculpts, but it shows. And I think that is one of the things. You look at the table with this stuff on, and it looks great. It looks gorgeous. There's loads. I mean, obviously, like everybody else, I have my favorites. I have ones I don't particularly like. I have ones I wouldn't have done like that. But that's what happens when you have 150 different miniatures in the range. There's always ones you prefer and ones you don't like. The Manticore. Did you see the Manticore?
Oh,
I think the Manticore.
Nice.
That was my reaction. I thought the Manticore, they showed me the Manticore, and I think I put this on my Facebook post. I said, I put it up in the evening. I said, they showed me this morning, and then said, don't talk about it. I was sitting there going, I've seen something really pretty, but I can't tell you anything about it. So in the end, I said to people, it's got this brilliant, but because it's got this detail with it. It's got sort of venom dripping off the scorpion's claw at the tail at the back. It's just brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant sculpt. And it's got that kind of thing. And I really like that. It's one of my top favorites. I won't tell you which ones I don't like, because everyone's just got different opinions. But that one I thought was just one of those ones where you look at it and you go, everyone's going to love this. One of those things we get. And of course, even that, we have people coming on the comments saying, I don't like it, it's a bit rubbish. The only thing I don't want, I'm not going to get. So, you just cannot please everybody all the time. But yeah, there's some absolutely cracking things in the miniatures range.
There are some very useful sculpts in there.
And as I said, the quality of, and this is the thing, the sharpness of detail, the quality of the finished piece. And I know that because I have the finished piece. I mean, I've got one like on my desk now. I've got a set of these things, and it is just amazing. This is how it's going to be. Oh, the other thing about it, which is really cool, and I don't think it's been done in board games before. I think it's been done in tabletop miniature games, and these are really tabletop miniature games. So miniature war games quality figures.
Yeah.
Better than some of those, to be honest, but they're very high quality figures. One of the things that's very clever about them is that after Conan, the factory said, we were talking to the factory saying, okay, let's just up the game. How can we improve an already good stuff? What we like what you did. How can we make that even better? And one of the things they came up with is a problem. It overcomes the problem that we've had with PVC miniatures since Kickstarters and Cool Mini and all the rest of them started doing huge boxes full of lots of PVC miniatures. Is that you get the miniature out and it looks like it's holding a piece of wet spaghetti rather than a spear.
Yes.
We've all seen this, and everybody goes, "Oh, you can use hair dryers, you can use cups of hot water, and blah blah blah." But it's not. It just never really works properly, and it's just a faff. And no gamer I know would choose that to be the case. So we had a word with the factory, and the factory came up with this brilliant idea of using. Somebody came up with this brilliant idea of using a mixture of ABS and PVC. ABS is the hard plastic Airfix kits are made out of. It's that kind of traditional plastic glue plastic. It's hard plastic like that. PVC is very good for some things because it allows you to do big miniatures with lots of big solid lumps, which you just can't do with ABS. You'd have to make them into lots of bits. But anyway, so what we did was we made all the things that need to be straight, particularly weapons like spears. We made them out of ABS. And then we made all the big chunky bits, like the big bodies of the gods and things, out of PVC. So you get the best of both worlds. You get Zeus standing there holding a spear, and it's straight because it's PVC. It's because the spear.
I was looking at Leonidas and noting that his quite impressive spear is dead straight, despite it being held horizontally.
That's right, because that is ABS. The spear is ABS. A spear in his hand, it joins sort of just halfway down his wrist, I think, halfway down his forearm on that particular model. But then the hoplites, their spears are straight. Athena, the gods have mostly got something or other, either spear or sword. They're all ABS. And so all the way through the range, there's some of the models have bits on them that are ABS because you want them to be straight. So when you get it out the box, it looks right. You don't have to faff with it. Not only are the models pre-assembled, which they all are, you just get them out the box, they're ready to go. They're all pre-assembled, and you look at them and they've got straight spears. You go, wow. Of course, for this, for ancient Greece, you really want the spears to be right. If the spears are all bendy, because the proportions and the scaling of them is quite realistic. So the spears are thin. They're realistically thin. They're not piano wire thin. They're realistically thin, but they're straight. And I thought, this is interesting. We had these at Essen, which is an enormous show, and we had several sets out on the table, people demoing them to people. And I was talking to them about this, and everybody's picking it up and poking it and bending it and trying to do this and that. And after the show, after 4 days of Essen, it's a very long show. After 4 days of Essen, 4 public days, and then the other days as well. When we got back to Paris, I had the job of going through all the sets and making sure they were all complete and nothing was broken or fallen off its base or whatever that was. And I checked all 5 sets and nothing was broken. After 4 days of being faffed about with by the public in general, being used as examples to show what bits are bendy and what bits are straight, and being unpacked and packed and unpacked and packed every day, nothing had broken. And I thought I was amazed, actually, to be honest. I was sure that something would have got broken or some, damaged in the process. So I'm to be honest, I'm really impressed by this process. Seems to have got us a very, very high quality end product, especially for a board game. But even in terms of it being, if it was tabletop miniature stuff, I think you just can't fault the quality.
So here we are. As you say, it's 22 days to go.
Yeah.
We're already on $640,000 from 5,290 backers as we speak. That's not bad going, is it?
Not at all.
How long has it been going? 8 days?
It started 8 days today. Yeah, it's almost just about 8 days and 1 hour or something like that.
Looking at the price of the dollar soon and the price of Brexit for the pound, it's going to be a really good investment, actually.
There you go, Dave. This is the son of Dave talking himself into it.
Oh, well, as I said, it's one of those things. I mean, you can always take the money out if you decide you don't like it, but it's only going to get, you've got 90 miniatures for $99 at the moment. Which, given as I said, that's not 90 human-sized miniatures. That's 90 miniatures, including one Titan, 6 gods, and several, at least 5 or 6 monsters.
And Dave,
say, Dave, you've just seen Conan.
Yeah, there's just such a good game, that is. It's just such a nice game to play. I'm really looking forward to a few more games of that.
Well, I haven't told you all the rest of the goodies about the way Mythic Battles plays. I only started there. More good, because I have to tell you more about that, and you can chop this about and put it in a sensible order if you want. That wouldn't be very me, but it would be possibly a bit more coherent.
We don't do coherent, we do chat.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, but I don't want to leave you without telling you about the rest of the clever bits that Benoit's done.
I've got complaints about Echo anyway.
Sorry?
I've got complaints about Echo.
Oh, what's that then?
She's got too many clothes on.
Oh, the big thing about Echo. I mean, there was a thing about people that for some reason, people. You know how any group of people, there's certain things become true, or certain things become sort of little bits for people to argue about that just happen to be a little sort of eddy in the current of the conversation. People keep coming back to Echo's hands should be open or fists. Now, basically, for people who haven't seen her, she's sort of standing there with her hands out, shouting.
Yeah, but the miniature, they're clenched fists, aren't they?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Like you would if you.
Yeah, but the artwork is open hands.
Ah, yes, and so there's the complexity. So which one's right?
It's only a model.
So it's not only a model; it's more important than that, Cobbsy.
Of course. What was the phrase? How come this model's in superhero stance? Was that?
I'd go for open-handed. I would.
Maybe she's Power Girl, really. I don't know.
Yeah, because interestingly, because obviously the other side with this, and it's something we've seen in Kickstarters run by the people, is that you've had this interaction where you say, right, okay, we've got this stretch goal.
Yeah. And
so someone shows a render, and the feedback is generally not good, which we've seen in the past. Yeah. And so the company's had the option to go away and change it.
That's right.
Obviously, with what you've been talking about, that's probably not quite so much the case.
No, it's not at all. I mean, this is the thing. If we had wanted to be able to do that, we would have said the realistic delivery time is 18 to 20 months. Not a year. Not 12 months. That's the realistic time. What a lot of people, I have a feeling that some people are knowingly saying, well, if we said 18 months, no one would back us because no one wants to wait that long. So we'll say it's 12 and then deliver 6 months late anyway. And people were just used to getting their stuff 6 months late, so no one will bother. Well, we didn't take that route. I think there's some of that going on. I don't know for that's true, but I have a feeling that there's some of these people know that they're not going to deliver it in the time that they're saying.
Yeah, there is a lot of that because pretty much every Kickstarter is always delayed a little bit.
Yeah, and I think people are working on the assumption that everybody assumes it's going to be late, so it doesn't matter if we're late.
And there's also the fact that a lot of people on Kickstarters haven't got a clue how models are actually made and think that this is just magic.
Yeah, that's right. You just click your fingers in that. Well, that's it. Why would you know? I mean, I haven't got much idea how all sorts of things I use in the house on a daily basis are made. It's this thing. If you don't know, you don't know. If nobody tells you, why would you know all the processes that someone goes through to make a metal figure or a plastic figure or whatever?
Yeah, but quite often you sort of point out how things actually work, and they don't believe you.
Yes, there is that. Yes, I mean there is that problem. Yeah. As a Obi-Wan, I know that sometimes the Padawans just don't listen.
Prometheus looks nice.
So Prometheus,
Dave, mate, it all looks nice. Press the button.
I told you, Dave. 200 quid. Sort out what you want later. It's the way ahead.
Dave, press the button.
Yeah.
I really like the Prometheus artwork. That's one of my favourite bits. Every time I look at the Prometheus artwork, in my head, it just goes Hulk smash.
See what you mean?
I just love these cards and the artwork that goes with them. It just looks absolutely fantastic.
It's fantastic.
And the slider.
291.
What's 291?
5,291.
Oh, 5,291. Right.
Yes, I pressed the button.
Right. Sure. Excellent.
Well done, Mike.
Well, what I was going to say. Okay, so I talked before about the way the draft works. So it's a very, very, very simple rule, but it has this beautiful sort of dynamic of making your brain hurt by trying to say, well, I've got these, he's got that, so I could take this to stop him having it, or I could take this because I like it and I find it easy to use and it suits my playstyle, or I could take this because it's got a synergy with something else I already have, or I could take this because I think it works well with the god I've got. And of course, you can only take one thing, and then if you don't take it, he might take it. So then you can't do it. You don't necessarily get to take it the next time because he might have pulled it out from underneath you. So it's got this lovely kind of dynamic there.
What happens if he's got a box and you've got a box?
You play with one box, but what you do in that case is you pick from one set.
Yeah.
And then you use your painted miniatures. You just swap in your painted figures. Yeah?
You don't know Neil that well, do you? No. Actually, I was about to say, Jake. I was going to say, Jake. What are you trying to say here?
If it matters, then you could swap in your painted figures. Anyway, that's draft. That's a recap. The draft. The draft is the first step. Again, very simple rules, lots of interesting kind of decisions to make. When you draft a unit, all of the units have a series of cards that come with them. And there are 3 kinds of cards. 2 kinds of cards are common. I'll tell you the other one later. Every unit has activation cards. These are the things that will let you activate that unit. Things normally have 4. Occasionally, something will have 5. Little guys always have 3. So you take these, when you take a unit, you put these activation cards in a pile and you start making a deck with these cards. Sometimes units also come with what's called an Art of War card, and these are special cards that allow you to do extra things. Art of War cards are generic. Activation cards belong to a specific unit, so they've got the art for that unit on. So you pick your army, and by picking your army, by the end of picking your army, you've got a little deck of cards that's made up of things to suit that. So every game you play, you have a different deck of cards. And you shuffle those all together, draw 3. You take 3 extra Art of War cards to have a starting hand of 6. Now, the way of doing it like this means that every time you start a game, you've always got at least 3 Art of War cards in your hand. So you know you've got some special stuff you can do. So you're always starting with a lot of options open. When it comes to your turn, usually start off the board and then move on and then move around once you're on the board. The Omphalos will start in the middle of the board, so they're sort of equidistant from both sides. The boards, just to sidetrack myself, the boards themselves, the areas are irregular, which makes very interesting play, and also makes the boards quite different from each other, because it's not just terrain Like this is a forest and that's a ruins. It's not just that makes the difference, which is something you'll be familiar with because that's the same in any kind of environment. You'll have different terrain effects. We have that as well, but because the areas of the board are different shapes and sizes, sometimes it takes 3 moves to get 3 to get across the board. Sometimes it takes 6. And where you're positioned, sometimes you can position yourself in an area that's quite long and has got lots of things it connects to, so it's a very good route through to other places, but also it's easy to get thumped from because it's easy to get to from everywhere else. So it's interesting kind of dynamic goes on with that. Anyway, back to the hand of cards. You've got your hand of cards. When it comes to your turn, your turn starts off with you draw a card, and then you can play 1 activation card for free. And so you'll have a hand of cards. So if you've got, let's say you've got 4 different units in your army, plus your guard, so you've got 5 different things you'll have activation cards for in your deck. You might not have all 5 of them in your hand. So that limits the number of things you can activate in your at that particular point. So if you've got, say, A, B, C, D, E in your hand, in your army, and you've got A, B, and C in your hand, but you haven't got D or E, then when you're looking at the tabletop to say, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, you can't do D and E out of your hand. You can't move them, you can't fight them, you can't activate them at all. You can only activate A, B, and C. So that gives you an interesting kind of dynamic. You think, oh, it's limiting my choice. It's kind of the command of control, fog of war, all of that kind of stuff, which is all good and all makes for interesting gameplay. But the Art of War cards are what makes it really interesting, because that in itself is an interesting way of doing it. Having random things you're allowed to play is interesting, and in several other games you get that kind of process where you turn over a card to see what you can activate next. Several games play that. This one, you've got your hand of cards, so you've got several different options. Art of War cards allow you to do funky things to mess around with this. If I don't have enough cards in my hand, but I've got an Art of War card, I can spend the Art of War card, which doesn't count as my activation because Art of War cards aren't activations. So I spend my Art of War card and I can take the top 2 cards from my deck. So that means pay 1, get 2 back, might have a different thing, might have something I want. That's an option. I can also spend an Art of War card to go through my deck and take any 1 card I want. So if I really, really need to move Ares, I spend an Art of War card, I go get an Ares card, then I can activate him with my Ares card. So although you don't, or fate may not be kind to give you the things you don't want, and you don't feel you can work with what has happened and the situation you've been given and what fate's given you in your hand, you can generally, because you start with Art of War cards, you either had them or spent them, you can mess around with what you've got in your hand. You can get yourself extra stuff. You can get more cards or specific cards. So the whole managing the cards in the game is quite interesting. Art of War cards can do other things as well. Sometimes you can spend them to, I said before, individual units all have special powers. Everything that's not troops, the troops are the little immortals, and they don't have special powers because they're not special. They're not gods, and they're not gods or heroes or monsters. So you can use Art of War cards. You can spend them to power certain effects. Certain effects are special. They need Art of War cards to be spent to make them work. Some powers are free. So, for example, Zeus has the most powerful ranged attack in the game by throwing lightning bolts, which is kind of unsurprising. But that costs 2 Art of War cards to do. So it's very expensive because you only have a limited number of these Art of War cards. But boy, does it hurt. So do you spend them and then you can't do other things? But is the hurt going to be worth it? And there's all this kind of, again, back to interesting choices from very simple rules. You've got these cards, you can spend it on one of these 5 things. Which one do you want to spend it on? Well, they're all going to be useful, but you can only spend it once. So you're managing all that. The other thing you can do with Art of War cards is you can buy a second activation. So if I want to move Ares and then I want to move Cerberus, if I've got the activation cards for Ares and Cerberus in my hand, I can play Ares activation card. That's my free activation. Then I can spend an Art of War card to buy a second activation. Then I spend my Cerberus card to move Cerberus. So I can use my Art of War cards to move faster, to do more. I can't buy a third one, 2's the limit, but, well, there is a caveat to that because Athena is special. But Athena's special ability aside, 2's the limit.
Right.
So the Art of War cards, they allow me to take extra cards. They allow me to take a specific card. They allow me to buy an extra action. They allow me to power powers. So you can see already that's kind of quite a lot of different options, quite a lot of different choice. And you never have very many of them. Because the number of Art of War cards you have is 3 that you get in your hand at the beginning, plus however many came with the units you took in your army. Now, Art of War cards symbolize tactical smarts, basically. So Athena comes with 3 because she is the goddess of clever fighting, not like Ares, who's the god of thumping people. And Ares comes with none. He's awesome in combat, but he's got no Art of War cards. He's just not subtle. So Athena isn't nearly as dangerous in a fight, in straight-up punching match, but she comes with 3 Art of War cards, so she's much more clever and tactical and thinky and allowed to fiddle with the deck and do extra things and control stuff. The monsters in the core set, none of them come with Art of War cards. They're all just bitey, nasty things in various different ways. And the heroes, some of them come with none, some of them come with up to, I think Odysseus comes with 3. But Odysseus, because he's got 3 Art of War cards, isn't so good as in a fight. He's a leader, he's a thinker. So you get this texture in what kind of quality of hero and god and so on. And these cards all come into your deck. So you could have a deck with just the 3 Art of War cards you got given at the beginning, and that's it. But you could also play with a deck with 10 Art of War cards in, if you took the right things. And so so he takes it back to drafting and the decisions you need to make when you're drafting. When you're drafting, you're not only thinking about, do I want this because it does that? Do I want it because it does something else? Do I want it because it synergizes with this thing? Do I want it because it stops him having it? Do I want it because it's got lots of Art of War cards? Becomes another question. So again, it makes that thing more things to think about in the first step. No extra rules changes. It's just more stuff to think about. So you're playing the game. When you actually activate a unit, it gets to do two simple actions or 1 special action. It's all fairly straightforward stuff if you played lots of figure games and lots of kind of activation-based kind of skirmishy games. That's not complicated. That's not where the kind of the clever bits are. I mean, you have a sort of, you can move or fight or pick up Omphalos to carry it around. Gods are the only ones who can absorb Omphalos, which takes it off the table. And if a god absorbs Omphalos, it takes their whole go, so they can't do any other fancy things. But they get an extra card called an Omphalos card. I said it like 4 hours ago, it seems. I was rambling on. I said there are 3 kinds of cards. There's activation cards, there's Art of War cards, and then there's the more unusual Omphalos cards, which you get when your god absorbs an Omphalos. Goes straight into your hand. And this works exactly like an Art of War card. It's another Art of War card for free that you've added during the game.
Right.
But it also has a special effect. If you want, you can spend this out of the game, basically. You can bin it from your deck to heal a point of life on your god. So that's kind of useful at times. So there's that as well. So it doesn't counteract the fact that you have absorbed it. So that the fact that you absorbed it goes towards winning by getting enough of Omphalos. So that doesn't go away if you've been the card. It's just the card's an extra freebie that you get for the as a sort of reward for absorbing the Omphalos. Now, talking about regaining vitality, there are stats obviously like any other game. There are stats for the different units, and these are. Get a card in front of me to make sure I'm not missing anything. Attack, defense, range, movement, vitality, and there's another one about the special powers, because some special powers have numbers associated with them. For example, how many dice the lightning attack rolls.
Right.
And the neat thing about this is that every time you lose a point of life, they've got these dashboards, these little these sort of cards that track your current stats. Because as you lose life, your stats change. Not only does your life go down, your vitality go down until you get to 0 and you're dead, but your other values go down as well. So as you get more beaten up, your attacks become weaker, your defense becomes weaker, your range drops because you can't reach, you can't be bothered to go so far, or you kind of turtle up in a defensive unit and you just don't brave the distance. Your movement drops as you get your legs broken, all the rest of it. So it's got a little plastic clip on it that slides up and down, so you can see the windows, which is your current set of stats. So that's really quite neat, and it means you get this situation where you get even the little guys can help kill gods because they can nibble away at a wound here, a wound there, and eventually they will die. But at the same, because healing's quite unusual, you generally don't get better very often. You just get more ill, and then you fall over. So you've got you can, again, with the Omphalos. The Omphalos are rare. The Omphalos cards are rare. So being able to heal with Omphalos cards is really quite a special thing. So it's quite powerful and quite useful. But again, you've got to get the Omphalos in the first place, and the other side know this. So there's a lot of kind of checks and balances there. So that's the thing I like is an interesting bit about drafting. There's an interesting bit about card play and how the whole card thing interacts, and you manage that. And what I said earlier is one of the things I liked that was you could mess with all the fate all the way through. You can mess with the dice as well. So the dice they have are marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blank. Very simple. When I attack you, I get the number of dice on my attack value, and I'm trying to get a total of whatever your defense is currently. So as I said, your defense may not have been this originally; it may have been higher originally. At the moment, it's now whatever it is. Anyway, so you roll the dice. Let's say I'm rolling 6 dice, and I need to get 7s. So if I roll my 6 dice, let's say I get one of each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blank. So the blank is a miss. That's gone. A 5 will roll up because you read each dice individually, and you obviously can't roll 6s, 7s, or whatever. The defense goes up to 10. So you're going to have trouble getting a 7 or an 8 or a 10 on one dice that goes up to 5. So when you get a 5, the 5 will roll up and add to 5. Okay? With me so far? So the neat thing is...
Just to prove somebody's awake.
Okay, right, good. Somebody is awake.
You do like your roll-up mechanics, don't you?
Well, yes. I didn't do this one. I didn't remember that. I didn't do this one. I'm just a fanboy, right? I'm just a fanboy here. So
I couldn't tell.
Well, I'm glad about that because it's embarrassing. So you get your dice. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blank. So the blank is a miss, so it bins. The 5 is going to roll up. So that's okay. So in most games, in every other game, not every other game, but most games, what would happen is the 1, 2, 3, 4 are just misses as well. In this one, anything that is a 1, 2, 3, or 4, you can discard that to add 1 to any other dice.
Right.
So regardless of whether it shows a 1, 2, 3, or 4, you can discard it and add 1 to something else. So I could discard the 1, or the 2, or the 3 to add 1 to the 4, making that a 5, which means it will now roll up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I rolled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 rolls up. I could sacrifice the 1 to add to the 4, which means it's now a 5. But then I've got a 2 and a 3 left. So if I had sacrificed the 2, it would make the 3 into a 4, which wouldn't roll up. So that's pointless. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But I could say, I've now got 2 5s and 2 spare dice that can add to be 1s. I could add, if I'm rolling against 7s, I could just say a 5 and then sacrifice these 2 ones to make that a 7. So I don't need to roll that one up. You with me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or I could keep them and see if I could roll the 2 dice first, and then if either of them is a 1, then I can bump it to a 2 to make a 7.
Yes.
The risk you take whenever you roll up is that if you get a blank, it busts that dice. So you lose 5. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you only need 6 or 7s, you can often just get some other dice and add to it to make automatic hits. What this is so clever at is that very, very often, most of the time you roll the dice, you've got the choice in crude terms of saying, do you want a small number of guaranteed hits or a bigger number of possible hits? And so there's always this balancing this risk and reward. And you get to these things where I need to do 3 wounds on him. And if I get 3 wounds on him and I kill him, then I win the game. And if I don't kill him now, I'm just going to get stamped on. So I've got to do it now. And you roll the dice and you go, well, I can get these 3 roll-ups and I need 8s, which means I need 3 plus on each of them. I need 3, 4, 5 on each of these dice to get 3 wounds to kill him, because every dice you get that equals the defense is a wound.
Hmm.
And it becomes this really interesting little, almost like a mini game where you're trying to work out what the best. Do you want to get some automatic hits and some roll-ups, or are you just going to get as many 5s as you can to go for as many roll-ups as you can? Or are you just going to go, I'm just going to go now, I'm just going to take the 1 hit, it's all my dice together, go, I can get 1 hit, 1 hit's good, it's just nibbling away, but it's a guaranteed hit. And it's just, as I said, so you've got the game where you can mess with the deployment, you can mess with the army building, you mess with the card system, which is how you activate everything, and then you mess with the dice rolls, and that's it, all the way through. Every single bit of randomness you can mess with. And I think that goes together to make a really, really interesting set of mechanics.
Yeah, and it's still got nice, simple rules in it.
But the rules are actually very, very straightforward.
Yeah.
All of the cleverness is in the fact that the thinky bits, the complexity in what you're thinking, is not a rule. It's an implication of a rule. So that's the nifty bit.
So would you be getting involved in the translation from the French to the English?
I already am. Yes, I am already up to my ears in it. Yes, because one of the useful things I can do for the team is that I am a native English speaker, and so I can take their translations into English, which are generally very good in the sense that you can understand what they mean, and I can turn them into kind of gamerese, English gamerese, because when you're looking at a set of rules, the usual reason you're looking at a set of rules beyond reading it so you know how to play is because some things you've done this, and in this situation you're here and I'm doing this, and then they do that, and then this special power kicks in, and what does all that mean? And you need the detail of the phraseology to be as clear as possible. And this is something that is very difficult when it's not your language.
Yeah.
So you can get they're very, very good at English. And my friend, I'm always embarrassed about the rubbishness of my French because they're so good at English. But even so, it's just getting somebody who is native to the language to do the fine tuning and tinkering and asking awkward questions as well about, do you mean exactly what, literally you've said this, I don't think you actually mean exactly what you've said, because I don't think it means quite what you think it means, because you're dealing in another language, So I've already started working with them on the rules for that. The game works. There's nothing wrong with the game at all. The game works, and as long as you've got Benoit there, you can play merrily all day. The problem is that we can't fit him in a box; he's too big. So, and the cloning machine just is—you wouldn't believe how much the Chinese charge for cloning these days. The thing I can do is bring my years of editing practice to this, and because they've given me a sensible amount of time to do it, unlike certain people I can mention, then you can go through the number of iterations that you need to make sure it's right. And that is a big issue. I mean, the amount of time you have to do it. It's another problem with rushing things for Kickstarter, is if you don't plan properly, then you go, well, we've got no time to actually read this again. We'll just have to bung it out. I mean, there's been several fairly big Kickstarters to put out rules and then had to do them again. I can think of several off the top of my head, which were quite surprising and rather embarrassing for them. including Conan, has had trouble with that. I mean, they were mortified because the thing is, I think the problem I think they had was that the French guys couldn't tell that the English had a problem because they don't. What I was saying. It's the subtleties of exact detail and phraseology, and as far as they were concerned, the English was fine, and they couldn't. They weren't native, so they couldn't tell. Whereas I can tell.
Yeah.
And I know enough people who are. Who I game with, who are particularly picky and exact, and will find a hole, and they're the ones who I do this as well. You find a little thread, you just start pulling, and you go, oh, where does this go? What happens if we just pull this a bit more? And that I think is what you need when you're testing it. But again, because we're this far advanced, because we're this far ahead of the game, we're working on an English beta version now. Another version, and they were playing this game in France. They played something like somewhere between 700 and 1,000 different public demos, and obviously several people play each demo. So an enormous number of games to make sure that this actually is slick and works. And all that needs to happen is that we need to express that slick rule set in English, is clean enough for people not to have issues with any of the combinations of things that they might try and do. But because we're now here with all of this testing that we've already done, we know the rules work. So we know what the answer is if anybody asks a question. We just need to make sure that the rules say exactly what we mean. So when we put this beta out during the playtest, we've got 3 months or whatever before we have to send off the files, and we just say, right, everybody pick holes in this and come back and tell us what you find. Because we can fix it, and we can actually genuinely. We've got the time to fix this.
I think what you have to do is maybe get 4 experienced gamers together in one place with your set of figures and boards, and and just let them play it out. And I think that would be invaluable feedback.
That would be a great idea.
I can't think of anyone that's suitable.
No.
I can't think of it. If you can think of anyone, you should let me know.
4 players. Where can we find 4 players?
Where can we find that? I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone suitable, Hobbsy.
No. Where do you live?
Preferably who've all pledged for the game.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that we should. Maybe I should put this
Fluffy, get a move on.
Oh, dear. You could see where that was going, couldn't you?
Yeah. It's a trap.
What's the phrase? No pressure.
Trap. Anyway, so that is yes. The question was, am I having anything to do with the rules? And the answer is yes. I'm helping the translation. I mean, I don't know enough French to make sense of the French version, but I know by the time they give it to me, it's in English. It's just a case of phraseology and making sure that it's a million details rather than translating whole sentences.
Yeah.
But then we can put it out, and because we've got this, so what we can do is we can, even once the Kickstarter was finished, we've got several months when we can put out new versions, and here's an update with beta version 3. Kick it around, read it, tell us what you think. If you can find anything wrong, if you can find anything that's confusing, let us know. We'll tinker about with it again. And that's one of the things I'm very keen on doing. And if I have my choice, that's what I will be helping the guys get right. Because I want to be frank, it's purely selfish. To be frank, I want a set of rules that doesn't have any arguments attached to it, because it's more fun for me.
A laudable aim. I fear, however, you may be doomed to failure.
It is. Yes, I've been doing this long enough to know this is extraordinarily difficult to do, and that everybody who is going, all the people who know exactly what's wrong with it, tend not to tell you when you're playtesting it, for some reason. I think it's an evil plan, but when you're testing it, obviously you get lots of feedback and you make your changes and you do this, and then when it goes public and it's printed, there's always something that comes out where somebody goes, "Oh, well, you don't want to do this," and you go, "Why did none of the 1,000 people we saw tell us this before? Why didn't we see it? Why didn't anybody see it?" But yes, I don't know. I think it's one of those kind of laws of thermodynamics or something. It's probably got a really cool name if you know physics. But
what is it? Perfection is to the butter.
Who knows? Who knows?
Well, Jake, I think we may have kept you too long because I can see there's about 1,000 new comments on the Kickstarter, and they've all got your name in them.
Yes.
Jesus, there are 360 new comments I haven't read yet.
Because obviously the one problem with talking to the Voice of Olympus is, well, we're talking to a Voice of Olympus. In the meantime, there's been a live chat going on.
Yeah.
And of course everybody's suddenly going, where's Jake gone? And he's busy chatting to us.
I did put a comment up that said I'm going to be doing this and talking to the guys from Meeples and Miniatures. And the problem is with the there's a few things. Kickstarter does some amazing stuff. I mean, the fact that it just exists in the first place is quite impressive. But it just added this Kickstart Live feature where we can do live broadcasts and then record them so people can watch them live, or they can come back and watch them the next day or whenever. And that's proved really popular, and Leo's done several of those. He was doing another one tonight. So that's really good. I think that's a really nice feature to include. But then there's other things that it doesn't do. So, for example, the comments thread is a page with a box at the top to write your comment, and then all the comments that has ever been on that campaign in order with the newest one at the top. Now,
yes,
what would be really useful is if I could put a bit of text at the top of that, like a pinned post on a Facebook page that said, here are the top 3 FAQ questions, so I don't have to answer them all the time. But I can't. There's nothing you can do. It's completely, you're completely stuck.
Oh, we got the Art of Mythic Battles just been released as an optional buy.
Uh-huh.
What?
You can now buy the art book.
Yes.
Oh, the art book.
Yes, the art book is today's shiny toy, and it's going to be the art book is. Well, anyway, you can read the post. I burble on a lot in the post because I write all the post updates as well. When I'm not dealing with however many hundred comments there are, I've written all the updates. I mean, my update kind of scratch file at the moment is up to, I think, 14 and something thousand words since the Kickstarter started, not counting all of the comments I've written.
Including stuff we haven't seen yet, I assume.
Including some stuff you haven't seen, and not including the stuff I did on the main page and so on. So one of the things I'm not complaining by any stretch. What I'm saying is quite fun. Is I've been really productive in terms of stuff I have written in the last 2 weeks. So the huge amounts of text and that's actually it's interesting. It's proved very popular. Lots of people have been saying they really like the background. They really like the kind of the tactical commentary and the discussion and so on. And I think that's really nice. I think it helps set the scene. It helps put the whole game in context and in place. And what I often say, and I probably said on this show before, is it helps you make the movie in your head, because I think you don't play the game in front of you, play the movie in your head. You can see the sort of the grand clash of gods and monsters as a movie in your head, and you sort of play it out. Oh, I don't know, maybe that's just me, but that's the way I always think of it. But having the background, telling the stories, explaining who these people are and why they're here and what they do, helps put into context what the model is supposed to do, what the character is, who the model represents, and all of that. So yes, I've written oodles of stuff, and I think we'll end up reusing some of it. The art book was this idea. When I first saw the stuff, the artwork that Leo had commissioned, that was the first thing I thought was just you just got to do an art book for this. They're just gorgeous pieces of artwork. I mean, Steph Kopinski's did the Zeus, who was the sort of reference style guide. This is where we're going kind of piece. And I think from there it just kind of went wow. and so the art book's going to be a big book of very beautiful pictures. And I think and I was just insisting and hoping that they'll do this. I think they will, where just don't put anything, don't write things on the pieces of art. We want to see the art for the art. We want to see these amazing pieces of art. We don't want to see, any hack can write a Hydra's got lots of heads in the corner of the picture of the Hydra, but I'd rather just have the picture of the Hydra. If you want background, we'll put loads of background in the rules. So there's rules and background there. If you want campaigns, there'll be a book with campaigns in. If you want, art, that's what the art book is. It's on fancy art paper. It's very nicely done. It just gives the art the space it needs to show itself at its full potential. And I think that's what, I think that's going to be a really, really beautiful thing when it's finished. A very, very, elegant thing. Because all you're doing really is just saying, wow, aren't these guys good at drawing?
It kind of gives some appreciation of just the amount of work that's gone into this.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've got over 100 pieces of art, and you've seen the standard. Though we're not talking about crayons here. We're well, actually, maybe Steph would be good with crayons anyway. But we're talking about very, very good pieces of artwork, and to have that quantity of them in a project, and you haven't seen quite a lot of them yet either. I mean, quite a lot of them aren't public yet. And it's just like this almost bottomless bucket of really cool stuff, and so that what we need to do is we need to just make people aware of this, because I think as soon as you look at it, pretty much most gamers look at this and they go, wow, that's cool, that's a really nice model, that's a great piece of art. And then you look at the gameplay and they go, oh, that's clever, that's really simple, but it's got clever things in it. You have to think about this. It's not simple like Snap simple. It's simple like something very complicated is simple. How does that work? So all we need, I reckon as soon as people look at the stall, as it were, they look at it and they go, oh wow, that's really great. And the difficulty is in making people aware of it, so they come and talk to us. They come and look at the shiny toys, which is partly where you guys come in.
Indeed, yes. I mean, obviously, I suppose you're not allowed to tease us about everything that's coming up.
No, not everything. Not everything. But of course, I don't know when you guys are going to be putting this out to the big wide world, because obviously some things will have happened between me talking to you tonight,
yes,
and the time that everyone else gets to listen to it. So,
especially considering the sheer rate that the stretch goals are
runaway train. Yes.
I mean, at the moment,
we're not doing bad.
Yes, it is kind of yes, as you said earlier, a little bit crazy.
Yeah, a little bit crazy. Yes.
So it's probably best that we finish the interview and then Jake can tell us afterwards. In
What you mean? Bearing in mind that it's 10 to 10 and we still have a whole bunch of show segments to record.
Oh yeah, bearing in mind that. Well, what do you want to know anyway? I mean, basically, we've got several different things. I don't know what you want to know that I can't tell you.
I'm happy to leave it as a real surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, no, seriously.
Okay,
yeah.
Sure. I can leave it as a surprise. I can do that. Yes.
Yeah. Leave it as a surprise.
Fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, sure. I must have by now explained that I think that it's a beautiful game. It's got simple rules, but there's an awful lot of chewiness and things to think about, things to which also gives it. I mean, especially with the Kickstarter, with whatever it is now, 90 odd models in the basic pledge. That's without buying expansions.
Mm.
The amount of replayability is enormous. Even if you never played any of the 50 scenarios that they've got developed, even if you just play a 2-player...
50 scenarios?
Apparently, Leo keeps telling me there are 50 scenarios. They're not all available yet.
Oh, right, okay.
But Leo keeps telling me there's 50 scenarios. I go, okay, whatever. You've done them. You had them organized. You've been kind of top banana organizing the bunch. So... apparently there's 50 scenarios. Even if you never play any of those scenarios, if you only ever played a 2-player game, kind of skirmish, you probably wouldn't play the same game twice. And you could play it again and again and again and again, because you've got different synergies with different things. You only take an army that's 12 points. And to put that in context, things that troop units are 1, minor heroes are 2, then you got 3 and 4. And in the basic set, that's it. So you could have an army with 3 things, or with 4 or 5 or 6 things. When you add all of the extras on the stretch goals on Kickstarter, so you've got another, 15, 20 units to pick from. A unit being a generic, could be anything, could be a monster, could be a hero, or whatever. The possible combinations and the possible different synergies of these things is just enormous. in terms of numbers of permutations of ways of playing. And there's now 6 gods you'll get 6 gods in the pledge. And every time you take a different god, that changes the way in which they kind of interrelate. So the value of a given piece, the value of a given unit is different for different gods. So you don't always want to take the same thing just because it works in a certain situation. If you've taken a different god, or if you got second pick and the other player took the one you wanted, then you've got to change up your plan. So the amount of replayability, just because there's so many different things, is very, very big. And also, I mean, there's another instance where it's an interesting thing about the way Kickstart works, because Kickstart releases stretch goals in here's one thing, here's one thing, here's one thing, and they're in series. And if you were doing, say, a Warhammer kind of style traditional fantasy game, and you were doing miniatures for this, you would have to be saying, well, here's an element, here's a unit for the elves, here's a unit for the dwarves, here's a unit for the orcs, and it would take ages to get everything finished. Or you'd only have bits of this and bits of that, and because you finish when the music stops at the end of whatever the period is you set, often that kind of game either only gives you one army or gives you partial bits of several armies, and so it's a bit kind of unsatisfying. You must have come across this kind of problem.
Yeah.
Because of the way the draft system works, every time you add a stretch goal, you're adding one thing that anybody can use, and the balance is still there. You're still complete. The set is complete, however far it gets, because anything you add is always one more thing that anyone could take in the draw. So the draft phase allows you to work very nicely with the structure that Kickstarter has. So you never get partial things, and you don't get the situation where you go, well, I don't. It's not for my army. I don't care. The next stretch goal is an elf thing, and I play dwarf, so I don't care about it, because everybody could play anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. That's an interesting thing. It means that everybody gets to use every stretch goal.
Yeah. As you say, which isn't a bad thing.
No. Well, so it should keep people encouraged all the way along. And I think you're probably right. I probably have rambled on long enough.
Well, I'm just so glad you came along for that 30-minute chat we discussed.
Yes, absolutely,
yes.
Yeah.
Wait, time out. Neil, you seriously thought this was going to be a 30-minute chat?
You have aspirations.
If you want me to come on for a 30-minute chat, Neil, you really need to tell me. I did do a 15-minute slot the other day for someone else, and that was actually 15 minutes.
You should know us by now.
I have to say, I didn't think I said nearly half of the interesting things that I could have said. But then, that's one of the reasons I like you guys. You let me kind of, take my shoes off and put my feet up. Kind of ramble on as I need to.
Yeah. Wait till you hear the edited version.
That's the 15-minute slot.
Yeah.
Well, Jake, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about it.
Welcome,
I mean, if you weren't sold on it before we started talking to you, no, it sounds great. It really does. And as I say, obviously you're a bit of a fan. I kind of picked up that that feeling as we were discussing. So we'll just confirm. At the moment, I mean, when we are recording this, there are 22. It's just clicked over to 21 days to go.
Oh, has it? All right. Okay. So now is the end of a day. It's 10 o'clock now. So now is the end of the day in Kickstarter world.
Indeed. Right? So it's just clicked over to 21 days to go. I mean, obviously, from when you're listening to this as a podcast listener, we will get this out ASAP. But so it's due to finish on Thursday, the 1st of December. It says 8 p.m. Is that GMT?
CET, I think.
CET.
Central European time, so it's an hour ahead.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Usually, it seems to be Leo's favourite time in the day. Everything happens at 8 p.m. CET.
Oh, hence why things like all the updates go out at all the updates for new add-ons and everything all go out.
That's when the Kickstarter started with it was 8 p.m. CET. So they've been kind of doing things on the anniversary of that. At 8 p.m. CET was when the thing started. So that's why.
Right.
But yes, it's becoming. It's making me smile now because when I ask, I'm just saying, would it by any chance be 8 p.m. CET? Would it just random guess? Oh, it is. Oh, excellent.
Well, so as you say, I mean, with the fact that we're already 23 stretch goals down, with 3 weeks still to go, I mean, it just kind of make you wonder just how far this thing can actually go.
Well,
like I said,
ClickTrack has it predicted at over 1 million.
Well, KickTrack is KickTrack's predictions are. I think you could cast the beans and see more accuracy, to be honest. But
what I tend to do with KickTrack is you look at the one they don't show you first and look at the lowest possible line on that, which tends to be quite an accurate prediction.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think we've been trying to do slightly different things, which comes back in part to the whole Voice of Olympus thing. But I don't want to make this a 5-hour thing, so I won't start on that. But we've been trying to kind of work in a slightly different way, but which is kind of working. It's interesting. It's kind of working and kind of not working in different ways, but it's an experiment. And I mean, I have been involved in enough Kickstarts on both customer and sort of creator ends, just to have given up completely on trying to guess what the final total is going to be. I don't know. I'm along for the ride. I'll hold on as long as I can and see what happens where we get to. The thing I have in my head, one of the things that makes me so enthusiastic about this is the idea of where it could get to. And I'm not just talking about this Kickstarter. I'm talking about the whole concept of Mythic Battles, because Mythic Battles Pantheon, the Pantheon bit at the end is the Greek bit. And the idea of Mythic Battles is it doesn't have to just be the Greek Pantheon. It could be other pantheons as well. And so if this goes well, which it seems to be doing, then we could come back another time.
Norse?
This is all Greek.
Norse? Please do Norse.
Well, let's say, for the sake of argument, that we do, I don't know, let's say Norse.
That'd be nice.
just as a plucking it randomly out of the air. Let's say we did Norse. So you do the same kind of idea. The mechanics are largely the same, but what you do is you put a twist on it. You mess about with the core mechanics, so you've got a twist on it that allows you to be more characterful for them, because there's no point. I mean, I talked to Benoit about this. There's no point in just doing the same thing with big beards, or different beards, or pointed helmets, or horned helmets, or whatever it might be.
I thought from the production team you already had the big beards.
We do have the big beards. That was probably not the best thing to think of, but so I have this. Never mind. But yeah, so the idea was I was saying to Benoit, we had this chat about it, and we agreed that it just isn't good enough to do any. Let's say, for sake of argument, we do Norse in a year's time or 2 years' time or whenever we get to go back to it. It isn't good enough just to do the same thing again with different models and different gods, because that's just not interesting enough, and we wouldn't be interested enough to do it really, really well, because you have to be passionate to do something with the passion, I think. And so we wanted to do is to find ways of just putting a slightly more, find things that were more Norse. So the idea of Valkyries or whatever, or the idea of, but anyway, whatever. You can see there are places. I don't want to start speculating too much, but to do that slightly differently. And then if you did an Aztec set, then the Aztecs might have more about could have sacrifices in it, and that could be a kind of central part of the way they worked. But at the same time, we also wanted them to work as a family, so that all the Mythic Battles versions worked together, so that we could potentially, in however long it takes us to get to this point, have a game where we're playing a 4-player game, 2 versus 2, and one of us has Anubis with an army of jackals and crocodile men and mummies and whatever. One of us has Smoking Mirror, who's a Mayan deity who's got feather warriors and Quetzalcoatl, another one's got Zeus, who's got his hoplites and Leonidas with him, and another one's got Odin, who's got berserkers and shield maidens and Valkyries, and and I can see this in my head. I can imagine this being the case, and I can just see that being such a cool game. And I think that would be there's lots of issues about how exactly do you combine them, how do you do this, how do you do that, but they're all things I can see. I mean, from a design point of view, they're all things I can see. Yeah, that's an issue. You can see, I can see how you would fix it. I can see how you would make it work. And so the idea of these the possible combinations then just goes exponential. And I can imagine it. You could just get the quality of these sculpts. If you're doing the quality of these sculpts and you're making Egyptian gods and Aztec gods and Thor and Odin, and I just think it would look beautiful. And just the whole thing, because we want to do we're doing organized play as well, which I didn't mention. Anyway, organized play, you can kind of see where I'm going, because it suits organized play really, really well.
Yes,
but.
Although it suits organised play really well, except it's interesting with the draft mechanic and the fact, because so much of organised play is the meta game, isn't it? And actually, in this, potentially you don't have that, do you? Well, it's different because obviously because of the drafting.
Well, it's different. I think it's different is what it is. It's not. I don't think it's gone away. I think what you do get is you also have to think that it won't be one kind of tournament in the same way that War Machine don't run one kind of tournament. They run 3 or 4. You have your kind of vanilla deck, kind of vanilla box set tournament. Then you have your anything you care to buy that's anything you care to bring along that's at one point or other appeared on a Kickstart exclusive or whatever. You can bring the kind of mad crazy anything one, or you could do a fixed deck equivalent where you play with one of these. This is what you take. There's plenty of permutations we can look at to kind of port from all the existing Magic the Gathering, War Machine, whatever kind of tournaments and organized play there already been. These people have made the mistakes and fallen over it and worked out what works. There's no reason why we can't learn from what they've done and what works out best. But I think the fact that there's no reason why you have to stick to one format immediately makes most of your problems go away. Because if you say this is a vanilla box tournament, then anyone can play. If you say this is a psycho everything you can possibly imagine tournament, free for all, whatever you like, then you walk into that knowing that's the environment. So, I think it gives people the choices, and it allows for you to have a really interesting and exciting organized play scene, and it be very inclusive at the same time without having to, you don't have to sort of say, oh, you can't play because you missed the Kickstarter, which I think would be terrible. It may mean that you haven't got all of these things to play this certain kind of tournament, but you can play that one or that one or that one instead. It's about building a community around the game and giving them different outlets for playing it. And I should stop. I said I should stop an hour ago. How many comments do you think there are now?
Too many.
I have a dead look.
414.
Oh my word! Yeah, we really have to let you go, mate.
You know how many I have overnight on the most I ever had coming back in the morning overnight.
Yeah,
was 150.
Oh dear. We appear to have caused you a bit of a problem. Sorry, mate.
I know what I
late night tonight, Jake.
Well, as opposed to a normal 16-hour day.
I hope they're paying you well, mate.
That's what I've been doing. I mean, you don't have to tell people this. I have mentioned this publicly because people were saying you did a typo on this, and I went, well, we're all very tired.
What's the average about 4 or 5 hours sleep a night?
Well, at the moment, what I'm doing, as I did, this sounds like a kind of sort of appeal for pity and poor me, but it's not at all. I'm just sort of telling you what I'm doing. I mean, I'm doing sort of at the desk shortly before 8, and I'm doing the same thing until shortly after midnight, and breaks to make a cup of tea and whatnot, but that's about it. And so, it's hard because it's a lot of work, but it's not unusual. This is not uncommon for people doing this kind of role. And I'm not the only one doing this. The poor sod who has to click the update thing because you can't automate it. If you want the update to go live, when you hit the stretch goal, you have to sit there and watch the total until you decide it's ready and then press the button. So if it happens to be 3 o'clock in the morning, he's sitting there till 3 o'clock in the morning. So I don't have that job, which is quite good.
But from a positive point of view, Jake, I mean, it really has been noticeable with the job that you're doing. Just how much, you're there all the time. You're answering, well, except when you're talking to us. You're answering comments quickly, and it's being picked up by the community that is the Kickstarter. And I really do think you are making a difference to the way this Kickstarter is run. You're doing a good job, mate.
Thank you. That's nice to hear. I mean, it's very hard to tell because. I'm doing the best I can. I mean, I'm just trying to be cheerful and trying to be honest with people because I don't know all the answers, and some of the stuff I know I'm not supposed to tell them, and that's very difficult at times. Particularly, it was hard with the Manticore. They told me in the morning about the Manticore and they showed me these pictures, and I went, I'm just sitting here all day talking to people, going like, I know something really exciting that I really, really want to tell you. It's really cool model. It's really, really great. It's one of my favorite toys in this whole range, and I really shouldn't be telling you about this. And it's actually oddly quite energizing because everyone's so upbeat until we do boobs, and then everything goes all wonky. But that's what always happens. But no, seriously, it's actually been very, very exciting. And even though I'm getting very silly amounts of sleep, I'm actually not completely dead with it. I mean, it's at times going pretty quickly. There's so much stuff to do. There is so much stuff to do behind the scenes of a Kickstarter. Just moving, it's just enormous. Writing all these updates, talking to all these people, and everyone's just so enthused about it. It's a nice kind of bubble to be in, especially on a day when the Americans decide to vote into office. Mr. Trump.
Indeed.
And a lot of people are not very happy. I don't know. Maybe we're a bit of escapism for the day.
Indeed. Yes. Yes. On the upside, it may mean that the Kickstarter, because it's in dollars, might end up being a bit cheaper. You never know.
Who knows? I mean, the market sort of lives of their own and go up and down all over the place. Who knows what they're going to do?
Indeed.
We'll just have to keep our fingers crossed. But I'm sure it won't. How bad can it be? we survived Brexit. It's just the same again. It's just political nonsense.
Yes. Oh, so what do we care? We've got toys to look at.
Yeah, that's right. We got toys. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time out from what is obviously a very busy evening. So you'll be. And
yes, a while catching up these ones.
Yes, well, yeah, no, we appreciate your time, mate. And I hope the role continues to go well. Remember, sleep is for wimps.
Yes. Well, yes. My mum told me off because I was talking to her about this, and she said, "How is it going?" And I said, "Plenty of time to sleep when you're dead." I got a little bit shouted at for that one.
Well, I certainly appreciate the sentiment, mate. No, but as I say, thank you so much, and all the very best with the rest of the Kickstarter. We look forward to seeing what other goodies you got in store for us.
Well, there's lots of them. Yeah, believe me, there's lots of nice things to come.
How long have I got to clear some shelf space?
It's the December 2017 is the delivery date.
Oh, loads of time then. Good.
Yeah. Well, what you should do, guys, is you should clear a couple of shelves. And you should get all your painting queue out the way for end of next year. There you go. You got a year's warning.
Yeah, but I've only just got Conan. That's
you got a year to paint it.
Moving swiftly on.
Well, yeah, so
Neil doesn't paint his lead mountain; he just sells them.
Indeed. Anyway, so December 2017. Obviously, it's already massively funded, and
Well, yes. I
looks
mean,
quite
we're romping through stretch goals is what we're doing. So, I mean, if anyone wants to, if anyone wants to join in, it's definitely not going to fail to happen. It's definitely happening. It's definitely happening with an awful lot of extra goodies. And counting. It's just, all it is now. We've got 3 weeks to sit as much as we possibly can onto the free goodies pile. So join in, because there's going to be loads of free stuff, like on top of whatever it is already.
Yeah, it's brilliant stuff. Well, as I say, thanks, Jake. We'll have to come back and chat to about everything else you've been doing at some other point when when you caught up in your sleep.
Yes, I mean, there's going to
when you're allowed to tell us about it.
Well, there's going to be there is that, yes, but there's going to be this period of the Kickstarter, and then there's going to be a week's sleep, and then I might be able to talk to you.
Indeed, mate. Yeah, good luck with it, and
thank you.
All being well, we'll catch up with you soon.
Look forward to it.
Well, there you have it.
That went on for, as I said, a bit longer than what I intended. So the question is,
just what were you thinking?
I was, well, it's good though.
He lost track of time. It's not like Neil to do that.
No, heaven forbid that. No, that was a cracker. And probably noted by the fact that somewhere halfway through I backed it. Have you backed it yet, Luffy?
No, not yet.
Get on with it.
Neil buys all the toys and then tells me afterwards.
Well, on this occasion, you get the opportunity.
What do you mean?
If you want a copy, you can back a copy now.
Yeah, and it'll just sit in the box gathering dust forever. Or one of them will be. Either yours or mine will.
Well, you could always use the figures to play Song of Gods and Heroes.
Well, you see, if he'd have got it all sorted, what he'd have done is he said, you can buy Conan, and then, I'll buy Conan and you buy this.
But I've already bought Conan.
Exactly.
That would also require a certain measure of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Impulse control.
Restraint.
Restraint? What's that? Don't understand.
Exactly.
Mr. Shuck is not the Donald Trump of game buying. Honest.
I've got the hair for a start.
Nor's he.
You think that's his hair?
Somebody's hair.
Yeah, no, it's though.
Oh, dear me. Yes. So are we descending into political comment? What's that phrase? People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
I was hoping to get through the day without, personally.
Indeed. Yes. So as I say, look, there's some seriously nice stuff in that, isn't there? No, I mean,
Lord, there is.
From what we've seen already, I mean, yeah, okay. There's one or two things you just kind of think, okay, yeah, maybe not quite so good. I mean, I remain unconvinced about the Hellhounds, for example.
Listeners also may note, for those of you who tease me about the phrase "really, really pretty," listen to the interview with Jake, and you might find out where I picked it up from.
There is so much.
There are some really, 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 really pretty figures.
Yeah, there is so much good stuff, and as I say, going by, well, yeah, we already saw what Monolith did with Conan. We had over 200 odd figures by the end of that one. I can easily see us getting there and thereabouts again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the mythos is so rich, and there's so much stuff they can possibly do.
I mean, if I were them, I'd go and talk to the Xena folks and see if they'd let them do some genuine Xena figures to go in with it, because they'd work.
Well, certainly. But I mean, having said that, there is so much stuff from the actual mythos.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And as you say, at the point where people start mentioning things like Conan crossovers, with what we've got already, you kind of think, "Oh, yes,
yes, please."
Yes.
Oh,
we just have to wait. We just have to wait a year for it to turn up.
Even at current exchange rates, it's a pretty good deal.
Already, as you say, and that is with 3 weeks. That is with, as we're recording, 3 weeks still to go. I mean, who knows where this could end up? And as you say, there were some seriously nice and some seriously big minis in this already. I mean, things like Cerberus and the Hydra are certainly not small.
And even the 28s are gorgeous.
Yes. Really, really nice stuff. Oh, good stuff. Right. Okay. I think what we'll do at this point, we'll call this one a wrap, shall we? Thank you for that vote of confidence.
I think Luffy's fallen asleep.
I think we have.
Sorry. What would you say?
See?
So yeah, right. Okay, so we'll call that a wrap, and we will go away and come and speak to you soon. As I say, as you can tell, plans at the moment on the Kickstarter, on the podcast are fluid. I think fluid's a good word.
But we've got some great guests lined up.
We have. And so, I know we said on the last show that we were going to be talking about ACW, and we've recorded the interview. So that will be coming up next.
We've recorded one of the
interviews. Yes, we still have another of the interviews to record, but we have recorded,
which is also going to be fraught with danger.
What, as in, like, we're talking to Mr.
It's not going to be.
Yes, we're talking to Mr. Clark. And
we are.
Indeed. Yes. Yes, because it's about time we caught up with him again. So.
Yeah, it is indeed. We also, on the list of things we were going to do tonight, was a potted review of Conan as well. That didn't happen.
I'm sure that will come up next time round because, when you start talking about what we've been up to, one of the things we have been...
Oh, I'm carefully holding off on playing it so I can play the role of the person who doesn't understand the game, talking to you two who do, or you three who do.
Right, okay. Well, that's one excuse I've heard.
That I've been far too busy playing. I ain't been shot by 3D printing trucks.
Yes. We seriously need to talk about that. That was a heck of a lot of trucks. Yeah, we should. It was. We shall have. Well, we shall definitely have to talk about that next time round.
Yeah, and also coming up, we have Dr. Harry Sidebottom, who, those of you who went to Partisan, was Partisan's author guest. And the big, sprawling, ancient battle that Mr. Miller, friend of the show, Simon Miller, was producing, was in fact based on one of Harry's books. And Harry, it turns out, he's a gamer.
Indeed. So we had a chat with him and said, "How do you fancy coming on the show?" And he said yes. So we got to speak to best-selling author Dr. Harry Sidebottom.
And then, Herbsy and I love this one, Jim Bamborough.
Oh.
Author of Combat HQ. And for those of you who played any D&D in the 80s, that'll be a trip down memory lane
right,
as well. Because I think Hobbsy and I are going to talk to you about that.
Yes. I was looking at his back catalogue the other day, kind of going, Played
that. That's the entire background for the Elvish part of my D&D universe. Played that, owned that, played that.
Oh, that's going back to our teenage years. That one is. Look at.
That's going back to that embarrassing gap in your wargaming when you discovered role-playing games. In fact,
indeed. So all that to look forward to. Packed timetable between now and Christmas. So I think all remains to be left is to say thank you very much for joining me to the Luffmeister.
He's gone again, hasn't he?
Oh, I'm trying to stay awake.
Yeah. Yeah, I did notice you kind of went very quiet during the interview, mate. Yeah. Thank you to Mr. Whitaker.
who has run out of cake.
Oh, desperate times. Desperate times.
We're turning into Test Match Special here.
Indeed. Oh, if only.
Yeah, Test Match Special is definitely quicker.
Oh, it isn't. If it was Test Match Special, that interview would have taken 5 days, which I wouldn't put past Jake.
Thank you to the Welsh Wizard, Mr. Michael Hobbs. And again, thank you to Jake Thornton for coming on for sparing us 5 minutes out of his busy schedule to come on. So until next time, guys, happy gaming, and we'll speak to you very, very soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Are we nearly there yet?
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.